Alright, welcome to the channel. This is Glock stuff. This channel is going to be mostly on TM Glocks, although I can probably do some other stuff as well, but I only own TM Glocks, so unless I'm going to be doing some tech work on, I don't know, a VFC or a GHK Glock, then I probably won't be doing any content on it. This first channel's episode is just a bit of a introduction. I'll go through a few different models of Glock, their differences. I'll try and highlight everything I can. It won't be exhaustive. There's loads of differences between the different models, and some of them are subtly different, some of them are not subtly different, so I'll try and go through the not so subtle differences. So first of all, there's 4 generations of Glock that you can get for Airsoft that are made by TM or made using the TM system. So you've got 2, 3, 4 and 5. So you've got a Gen 3 there, Gen 4 there and there, and a Gen 5 here and here. The Gen 2 is very, very similar in frame to a Gen 3, just doesn't have this rail system here. Instead it's sort of, I guess, a curve that meets up here and finishes quite nicely, so it's virtually identical, you just can't run a torch. I might as well go through the Gen 3s whilst I'm talking about them. So Gen 3s typically have this finger groove here, small non-ambidextrous magazine release, fairly narrow mag well. You can get, I guess Magpul call it a gas pedal, but you can get a thumb grip that sits in the groove here to rest your thumb on. Some people really like them. I find they're comfortable, but they catch on things and you end up knocking your pistol on the floor, so it's not worth having, but it's just my opinion. Gen 4s got here. So again, very similar groove system here, different grip texture. It also has a groove here that you can use to fit the beaver tails. So for those of you that have bigger hands, these frames allow you to fit a dedicated designed beaver tail here for bigger hands. So if you've got small hands like me, it's absolutely fine. If you've got, I don't know, farmer hands, then you can get the XL for grip that sits on there and makes it easier. Then you've got the Gen 5. So this one is externally not a huge amount different from the Gen 4. So you've still got the rail, you've got the texture. They've removed the finger grooves there. You still have the beaver tail here. Both the Gen 5 and the Gen 4 have ambidextrous magazine releases, so this mag release can be pushed out, rotated round and put in this end. So if for whatever reason you want to shoot left-handed and left-handed only, then you can switch it around. Works quite well. You will need the Gen 4 and 5 compatible mags, so they just have dual notches on them on both sides. The sort of traditional ones won't work because there's not the extra notch on the other side. I can talk about that later, probably in another video. The other difference that the Gen 5 has externally is a flared magwell, so you can't see it much here because of the JDJ magwell, but the magwell flares out slightly, which means that without having to buy a new magwell, you have a flare to be able to insert the magazine easier. It's quite good, it's quite convenient. The Gen 5 also has ambidextrous slide stop, so there you go, from both sides. The trigger is much nicer on the Gen 5 than the others. It's much more crisp. I can talk about that a little bit later. Okay, the other big difference is the Marui Gen 5 MOS or MOS is the mounted optic system. So you have a cutout here, and it's quite a deep cutout that allows you to fit a variety of different optics. So I've got an RMR on here, I've got a hollow sun on there. You can fit acros, Leopolds, everything. There's a plate for basically every sight on the market. You will find that, for example, the Gen 4s and some of the Gen 3s, you can buy slides that have the RMR cutout. These will come at a compromise, so the nozzle inside the slide has to be smaller to be able to fit the RMR cutout, but in some cases that's worth it. So if we quickly look at internals, this is going to be very brief. So for the Gen 3, you have a single stage guide rod. This is the smaller of the blowback nozzles. If you look at the Gen 4 and the Gen 5, the blowback nozzles are larger, which means better gas efficiency, better recoil, all that sort of stuff. The spring for the blowback nozzle is on the outside as well, whereas I'll talk about that with the Gen 5 a little bit later on. Here, the ball bearing, the bearing on the hammer is relatively small. You can get bigger bearings actually, which make a big difference, but generally speaking the bearings are quite small. The bigger the bearing, the better the roll, or the less rolling resistance you get as the slide comes back. So it is a benefit to get a larger bearing. Actually, I'll leave that out for now and you can see the differences. So that's a Gen 3. This is a Gen 4. Virtually identical. The main difference you'll see between the Gen 3 and the Gen 4 is this groove here. It prevents the magazine from over travelling. It is a good design. You can also, if you're that way, if you're upgrading your Gen 3 and you got the money and you got the time, I would highly recommend you look for the Gen 4 hammer chassis and put that in the Gen 3, because they will fit. They're the same profile. That benefit there prevents the magazine from sitting too high and messing with the slide action. So it is, in my opinion, it's a worthwhile upgrade. So that's the Gen 3, Gen 4, and now Gen 5. So, Gen 4 slide has a 2-stage recoil rod, very, very similar in the Gen 5. They are different, they're not interchangeable. The other thing you'll notice here, I'm not sure if it's evident in the video, but the Gen 5 nozzle is substantially bigger. It's got a larger volume for air to expand and to move around. The Gen 4 nozzle is not too dissimilar from the Gen 3. It's a little bit bigger. You'll find, if you happen to own one of these, that the difference between the two of them is night and day. The Gen 5 kicks so much better than the Gen 4 or Gen 3. The Gen 4, there's a little groove there, so that sits in place, prevents the guide rod from moving. The Gen 5 doesn't have that, it just sort of, the spring tension holds it in place, much like the Gen 3. Not sure why they've gone that way, but they've done it for a reason apparently. Hammer unit, this is the big change. So if we look here, you'll probably be able to see from the videos, the hammer bearing on the Gen 5 is substantially larger, and it's a different shape as well. So what it allows it to do is sit almost perfectly flush with the frame, so there's almost no rolling resistance on this when it comes back. It's really good. Makes a world of difference. The Gen 3s and 4s, if I do the same thing, that's actually quite a well shimmed hammer, so that's not a great example. Oh, and I've done a good job on that one as well. Okay, well, you'll have to trust me on this. When the hammer comes back, it'll protrude ever so slightly, and that protrusion creates rolling resistance on the slide, which prevents the slide from coming back quite as efficiently as it can. There's none of that on the Gen 5. Right, actually I'm just going to put these to the side, tidy them up later. You also have Gen 3 Glock 19s and Gen 4 Glock 19s. Internally they are quite similar. The main difference between the two of them is the hop unit. So the guide rod and hop unit are different on the two of them. The Gen 4 has a 2-stage, which in my opinion provides better recoil, better gas efficiency. So if you've got a choice, I would recommend the Gen 4 over the Gen 3 any day. But they are very similar. Same shape and size, very similar gas efficiency, although the Gen 4 is slightly better. Yeah, the other thing to note actually is with the Gen 5, the recoil spring is actually built into the nozzle, so you don't lose any space in the blowback housing for air to expand, whereas in the 3s and 4s the return spring sits along here somewhere and you do lose space, unfortunately. So the Gen 5 is generally a much better gas efficiency than the Gen 3s and Gen 4s. But that being said, this is the Garda Glock 34 full steel. So this is quite a heavy slide, heavy barrel. It weighs quite a bit actually compared to some of my other replicas, and it cycles really, really well. It's really good. So I'm here saying that the Gen 5 is much, much better, but actually I find the Gen 4s are very good as well. I'd highly recommend them. The last thing I'm going to cover is Gen 3 RMR slides. So this is a Guns Modify Glock 34 with RMR. The RMR slides take a Glock 18C nozzle and a sort of hybrid blowback housing. So everything else is the same as the Gen 3. It's just this nozzle is ever so slightly different. You would have thought it would make it perform worse, but it actually performs very, very well. This particular Glock is my workhorse, so this is what I will take and use all the time. It's very reliable even in the cold, despite the fact it's a Gen 3 and full metal. I would highly recommend this slide kit if you get the chance. I'm really impressed with it. I can't fault it. Okay, that's all for now. I hope you enjoyed. I'll do some more videos in the future. I think going forward, the main requests I've had are to do Gen 5 videos. In fact, all of my Gen 5s have had upgrades, so they've all had spring replaced, magwell slide, barrel, hop unit. All of them have had the TTI single piece hop unit put in. It's very good, highly recommend it. It's a TDC style. I'll talk about that more later. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed. If you've got questions or you want videos covering specific things, then let me know. I can answer whatever questions are asked, and I can provide help and tech advice where needed. If you want things done, if you want a build, any repairs done, then by all means contact me. I'll find a way of putting some information out so that people can contact me. Yeah, thank you.